Today we are going to be developing a permission blockchain network using Hyperledger. We'll deploy it on an Ubuntu virtual machine hosted on the Azure cloud platform, and finally we'll serve it as a REST API. The first thing we'll do is request a VM on Azure. We'll download all the packages we need and set up an environment. Next, we'll create and deploy the blockchain network, and finally we'll serve it as a REST API. Great, let's get started. Go to Azure at portal.azure.com. You should sign in or create an account if you don't have one. Great. So once you're logged in, you'll see a dashboard. Something like this. Let's create a new resource. We'll request the Ubuntu server. We're choosing Ubuntu because Hyperledger's Fabric framework only supports Ubuntu or macOS. Now we'll have to choose the name and specs of our server. I'll quickly finish up this form. You can fill this as you see fit. Now for the specs, anything above 4 GB of RAM should be suitable for our purposes. Again, just going to fill up this form. Okay, it looks fine. Yep, we don't need that. So okay, so the hourly rate of the VM is stated here. Okay, that's fine. Let's create. Okay, once the server is allocated, you'll see a dashboard like this. Now we need to talk to a server, so we'll need a static IP, and it'll be good to have a DNS for ourselves. So I'll go ahead and create one. Static IP, and I'll call the DNS Hyperledger. Save that. Since we need to talk to a server, we'll definitely need ports we can access from our local machine. Let's quickly go to networking and create the rules for the inbound ports. We'll need one port on 8080 to talk to our GUI, which is Composer. We'll need another port for the REST API. This time, we'll make it on 3000. Okay, so that's done. We have the VM set up with the necessary networking ready. Go back to Overview on the left dashboard and go to Connect. This SSH link should open up. So far, we've covered 1/5 of the journey. The next step is to set up the dev environment. So let's SSH into our server using that link we just copied. Copy that, and we're in the terminal. SSH. Yes. Password. Done. Next thing, we want to install Git. Next, we want to install Go, and you'll be able to find the links in the description of the video. Okay. Now extract that so you can get the binary. Extract it. Now take it to user local. Now we have that. Let's set up the variables to get Go working. For us, that's Go root, Go path, and path, the path variable. We'll also need a copy of these variables in profile. So we'll go ahead and open profile, scroll to the bottom, and write the same variables in. Yep, save that and exit. Now we want to install Docker, so let's set up our keys for that. It's a really big command, so I have it written right here. Done. So now let's get the repo from where we're going to fetch Docker for our particular build. That's done. Let's run an update quickly. So that was Docker. Now we need to install Docker engine. That's the command we'll run, and Docker engine is done. Yes, it's done. Okay, so this will install everything we need. Now let's check if Docker is running. If it is running, you'll see something like this: the self-sufficient runtime for containers. Okay, now we want to download Docker Compose. I have the link for that. Again, you'll find this in the description. Let's make that an executable by modifying the permissions using chmod. Is it working? Yes, it's working. So that was git, go, docker. Next we want to set up npm and node. We'll do that using nvm. sh into bash. Done. Let's install version 8.9 of node. Looks like I already have that. Let's install node chip. Alright, we're at the end of our road. We've installed a lot of packages just to get Hyperledger Composer running. We're just left with 4. So let's install Composer CLI. The next one is Composer REST server and the generator Hyperledger Composer. These are all Composer packages. And the last one you need to do is Yo. Alright, we're ready to install Composer Playground. Composer Playground. Alright. Composer Playground is the GUI for the network. It'll give a nice interface to communicate with the contracts and permissions that we write, and it will also help us deploy the network. Let's create a place for keeping our network configs and files. I'll create a folder by the name of Fabric Dev Servers. Fabric is the developmental framework of Hyperledger. It's like the backbone of the entire thing. With chain code, Fabric is what we use to build custom business networks with Hyperledger. It was built by IBM and the Linux Foundation. So let's get started with Fabric. First, let's download the tar file. Extract that using the tar xvf command. Now let's run the Fabric script. I'll just put a sudo there. Okay. This is going to download all the Docker images we need to get the network up and running. This is going to take a while, so let's stop and continue in some time. Okay, we're back and the Docker images are downloaded. They're basically going to be the order node and the peers of the network. So what are we waiting for? Let's start Fabric. Let's check if we have the Docker images running. Do sudo docker ps. Yep, they're up. That's good news. Now we're going to create the admin of our first network ever. This is done using the create peer admin script. Hyperledger has a concept called business card, which are basically authentication ID for different users of the network. So that is working. We can finally start Composer Playground. So you see that Composer is live on the port 8080 and so is our Azure hosted blockchain. So far, we've requested a VM, set up a dev environment, created a Hyperledger blockchain and deployed the network using Composer. So let's go back to Azure dashboard, copy this DNS right here and go to a new Safari window, paste that in. Composer is hosted on the port 8080, so let's log in there. Great, we are in Composer Playground. Here we'll interact with the blockchain that we've just hosted on Azure using Fabric. Let's deploy a new network. You can see a lot of examples at the bottom. Let's choose this one here. Okay. I'm just going to put in admin@pii. Now choose the ID. Now remember, the ID that you put in should be admin and the password is adminpw, all small, no caps. Let's have a look at the network again. Great, looks fine. Let's deploy it. Let's connect. Now this is the interface where we can write the permissions, the queries and all the other details, where we're basically going to define the specifics of the network. This is similar to the smart contracts that we have seen in the Ethereum framework. I have another video on that if you would like to check that out. So now let's deploy this network onto our local host. So we can finally create a REST endpoint for that. To create a REST service from this network, let's SSH into our VM from another terminal. The binary composer REST server does exactly what we want. Yep, REST server. In this question, I'm just going to give in admin.@PII. That's the card we just created. Yep. So now we can see that it's hosted on 3000. The REST endpoint is on the port 3000. Let's go there and we'll see. Let's go to port 3000 in another tab. And we should see the REST API. Okay, great. So here we can create, read, update, delete, basically do the whole of CRUD on our blockchain. So that's that. Let's do a quick recap. Today we've created a VM on Azure, set up the necessary packages. We created a blockchain on Azure using the Hyperledger framework and had a nice GUI to interact with it called the Composer. Finally, in the end, we served it as a REST API that could do CRUD. I sure hope this was useful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below.